Good morning and a warm welcome to each one of you to this International Women's Day celebration organized by the Women's Commission, Archdiocese of Bangalore. Thank you all to those who had joined our WhatsApp group in advance and took the trouble to read and share their views on this very important topic of gender equality. Without women, the world just wouldn't be the same. God made women in His image for a special reason. He gave us strength to endure hardships, life's most powerful moments, and happy times too. Throughout history, there have been many amazing women in India, from our freedom fighters to politicians, business leaders to dynamic social changers. We have had strong women who have led by example with courage and fortitude. Let us always remember how much we can achieve with faith in ourselves and in God. We have an exciting program planned for you today. But before we begin, a reminder to please keep yourselves muted at all times so that the speakers can be clearly heard with no background disturbances. We, however, encourage you to turn your cameras on so we can have a more interactive session. Welcoming you all, I now invite Elaine Meneses, the coordinator of our Women's Commission events team, to lead us into prayer. This will be followed by a meaningful hymn aptly selected and sung by our events team members. Welcome, Elaine. Over to Elaine.
Let us bow our heads in prayer. Loving Father, we thank you for your promise of fullness of life. As we celebrate women across the world, we ask that all women be released into this fullness. Help us to see how to dismantle unjust systems and attitudes that contribute to inequality. Help us, dear God, to break that bias through the inspiration and guidance of our Holy Spirit. Forgive us when we have limited women through inequality or stereotypes or exclusion through lack of opportunity. We remember the women who have played a part in our lives, those who have nurtured us, taught us, inspired us, and loved us. On this International Women's Day, we acknowledge the challenges women still face. We pray that all women may know equality in healthcare, education, and prospects, and that all women may know themselves to be respected and safe, included and empowered. For all that we bear, violence, both physical and emotional, injustices, both known and unknown, the inescapable weight of misogyny, the trauma of generations, we ask for strength in our bones and love for ourselves, and courage to keep asserting, and a world that honors our being. We ask for an end to forces that tear and the force of love to repair. Amen.
For everyone born, a place at the table. For everyone born, clean water and bread. For shelter, a space, the sacred so growing, for everyone born, a star overhead, and God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For woman and man, a place at the table, revising the roles, deciding to share, with wisdom and grace, dividing the powers. For woman and man, a system that's fair, and God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. For everyone born, a place at the table, to live without fear and simply to be. To work, to speak out, to witness and worship. For everyone born, the right to be free. And God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice and God will delight when we are creators of justice and joy. Yes, God will delight when we are creators of justice
అయ్యో స్వామి
and
ప్రాణాలపై
oh, come to the table.
Thank you, Elaine, for that wonderful prayer. And we thank the events team for that beautiful hymn they played. I now invite Priya Francis, the Secretary of the Women's Commission, to say a few words. Welcome, Priya.
Thank you. So a very good day to you all. The Women's Day is a day that reminds us to celebrate our accomplishments as women. It is a day to rekindle our passion to serve women and girl children in our community. When the pandemic threatened lives and created so much of panic and gloom worldwide, our Women's Commission members stepped forward to support the community in many ways. As emotional anchors, as a guide to avail medical care, providing financial aid, resources like even preparation of food, distributing clothing, technology support for girl children to continue their education. We also created a powerful movement, the We for She, for women to stand up against domestic violence and to know the laws and rights that protect and empower women. As a Women's Commission, we ensure women's spiritual, leadership, and personality development, the wellness and well-being of women, and education of our girl children. In the post-pandemic era, we will continue to focus on holistic development of women and on breaking the shackles of discrimination and harassment by creating awareness on the prevention of sexual harassment of women and child safeguarding laws and practices within our community to truly empower our women and their families. We have so many examples of women who have benefited from our services, and hence we take this day to thank God for the Women's Commission platform. We thank all the vibrant parish women's cells for the efforts and initiatives they undertake to make a difference in the lives of women. We are grateful to Father Susiraj, the advisor for Women's Commission, to our parish priests and deans for supporting us in our mission, and our good shepherd, the Archbishop Dr. Peter Machado, for being a true supporter of gender equality. So ladies, we are growing in strength from 8 parishes in the last 2 years to 28 parishes as on date. And yes, we have an ambitious target to reach 100 parishes over the next 2 years. There is power in networking and there is strength in collaboration. So let's together make this year 2022 highly impactful for the women in our community. On behalf of the Women's Commission members, the office bearers, the leaders of various parishes, and our events team, I wish all of you an enriching Women's Day today and every other day in the year 2022. So keep smiling and keep shining. The Women's Commission is with you in your life's journey. Thank you.
Keep smiling, keep shining. Thank you, Priya, for those wonderful words. I now invite our beloved Archbishop of Bangalore, His Grace, Reverend Dr. Peter Machado, who has always been a strong support for all our activities. He's with us today. We now invite him to address the participants. Welcome, Your Grace.
So good morning and a happy day to all the women who have gathered on this platform and the others perhaps who are listening elsewhere. And since it's recorded, perhaps it should be surely passed round. I wish you a very happy day, a happy celebration. I'm sorry I can't see all of you, whether you are smiling, whether you are decorated, whether you are dressed well, whether you have put your lipsticks. It would have been useful for me for all these things. But I know that women, especially of Bangalore Archdiocese, are very, very special, and they go out all out in order to make others happy. So I greet Priya Francis, the President of the Women's Commission, and also the Secretary of the President of the Women's Collective, and the Secretary of the Women's Commission of our Archdiocese, all the office bearers, and I see some others also on the screen, at least the names and the pictures. I see Brynel D'Souza, whom I am very happy that she introduced me to Rinda Gruva also in this anti-conversion type of activity or a campaign that I was doing. So my dear women, my dear sisters, I'm just given about 10 minutes. I think I've already finished 1 minute or 2 minutes. I will keep up my timing so that you get more time to speak today than the men that are on the screens today. First of all, gender equality, gender rules, we call it. You know, the gender rules have come through our gender, and as far as I can understand, the 4 biases that have come to us, first of all, because of our physical appearance. Women are supposed to be gully, the roundabout, the shining, and the men are supposed to be rough with half beard or full beard. They are the sort of physical traits. Secondly, our domestic roles also. Women are supposed to be cooking and the men are supposed to be eating or standing outside, enjoying. And women are always inside, men are supposed to be always outside. There's false type of this one, occupations. There are many occupations that are so much restricted and say that only men should be doing these, women should not put their hand in that. Today we know that we have women pilots who sail much better than the men. There are women drivers and train drivers, and perhaps space also has reached, which means we need not be so much biased about these occupations. And finally, certain personality traits in the gender roles also, we say that the men should be looking stern, the women should be always crying, the men should be sort of robust and macho type of things. So these are the false traits that have come up in this one, and therefore the gender roles that have come to us traditionally from our families, from our societies, perhaps we have to disturb them a little and say that the modern age, the modern world, the modern situation perhaps may not be as required or as strict as these. So therefore, according to me, there are three things that are necessary to be altered in this gender roles. Number one is, first of all, gender sensitivity. We have to be sensitive to each person, to each gender, to each characteristic, to each, I would say, the person that is entrusted or rather given in front of us. Sensitivity. We have to be very sensitive in our words, in our actions, in our roles, in our media, to depict in proper way the importance of the gender assigned roles or the gender assumed roles. Secondly, I say, most important, that's the topic today, gender equality. There is nothing that is written anywhere. There is nothing that is perhaps proclaimed anywhere to say that men are superior, women are inferior. Perhaps I don't think we can go on with this kind of philosophy. Gender equality is the most important. Whatever be our roles, whatever be the works that we do, whatever be perhaps the services that we render, we are all equal. And this equality has to come about, and we have to try our best in order to make it stress. Perhaps we are, once again, I say we are not sensitive, whether it's in the church, whether it's in the society, whether it's in the family. So because of these traditional rules, this equality is not something that comes out very naturally. We have to stress it. We have to repeat it. Perhaps it has come to that the women have to fight for it. I'm sorry for this, but this is the type of the sensitivity that we need. And thirdly, I would say creativity. Creativity. You know, women can bring out from their, women are by nature multitasks. I can tell you that. That's one great or positive quality that you have. We men, if I'm looking at this computer, I can't do anything more than except look at this computer, look at this book, look at this one. But women are blessed. She can look at the computer at the same time, take care of their child, put off the fire there, and perhaps answer a phone call. They can do so many things, and all well balanced and well perhaps thought about and executed also. Therefore, certain creativity also is necessary, you know, to bring out from your nature, from your characteristic, to say that we are much more than, who said in this equality business, why don't we say that women are more superior to men in many things that we consider? So these are the 3 points that I would like to say. First of all, gender sensitivity, gender equality, gender creativity. And we have to start somewhere. I'll give you a small anecdote. You know, many years back, when I was in Belgaum, I know a family, the husband was working abroad, Gulf. He was a small-time clerk there, but the money was quite a lot. And his family was well looked after with a big house, and the children were also studying in good schools, etc. All of a sudden, you know, there was a crisis of Gulf. And many people returned from the Gulf because the war or perhaps the clouds of distrust between the nations there, many came back. And so when this man came back, he told me that I was going after 2 months. What was 2 months became 6 months and 1 year. All the income that he had accrued, drained out, and ultimately they had no job, no distinction in politics. In politics, especially what we have, the corporation elections that are coming. I would be happy if many of you got ready for it, but be organized. Don't oppose. One woman cannot be opposed by 3 other women if there is a women reserved constituency, etc. So these are my 2 small announcements, and I wish you well, and especially pray for gender equality, that it may start in your family, in our society, in our church, and in the world at large. God bless you.
Inspirational and encouraging message. We will now watch a short but powerful video on gender discrimination and how we have unconsciously accepted it as a part of our lives. Acknowledging this will be the first step towards making a change.
It doesn't matter how we look, how we speak, what color we are. It doesn't matter who we are. Because in the end, we're all the same on the inside. We all laugh, we all cry, we all feel joy, we all feel pain. It's time to stop the discrimination.
Wasn't that an eye-opener? I'm sure you have started thinking about these injustices around us. Let's take this a step further in the next part of our program, which is a panel discussion on the topic of gender equality, breaking the bias. I now hand the reins over to Rina Pereira, an active member of the Women's Commission and a HR and communication professional. Rina will be moderating the discussion with our expert panelists. Welcome, Rina.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Anita, and welcome all of you, those who have tuned in to the International Women's Day celebrations by the Women's Commission Bangalore today. Thank you, each one of you for joining us today. So just to let you all know and to set the context, this Women's Commission has been an integral part of my life in the last 2 years. The lockdown managed to quieten the world, but it even chained us in our homes. But the women in this commission failed to be silenced. Parish teams were opening up by the dozen, and our calendar that we were managing was bustling and buzzing with activities. We had to push things here and there so that we could manage to attend them all over the weekends. And we have been enriched by these programs. That just goes to prove we can never be silenced. Not even a pandemic can do so. Through this commission, so many have been benefited. We have had health and wellness programs, awareness on menstrual hygiene, distribution of cloth napkins, tablets to the underprivileged for the purpose of education, career awareness programs, and much, much more. The list will go on. And here we are today on a panel discussion to discuss gender equality. I thank the Events Committee for extending the invitation to moderate this discussion, and I was more than happy to accept. If we have to build a sustainable tomorrow, we need to have gender equality today. We need to examine the opportunities and constraints to empower women and girls to find their voice and to be equal players in decision-making. Without gender equality today, a sustainable future and an equal future remains beyond our reach. So our topic for today is gender equality at home, at work, and in the church. And to join me in this discussion on gender equality, we have our panelists. Request them to be spotlighted for a while, Brynel and Arun, before we move forward to their presentation. I move on to introduce Brynel D'Souza, the chairperson, Center for Health and Mental Health, School of Social Work, Tata Institute of Social Sciences. We popularly know it as TIS. We also have Arun Amirtham, the chairman and chief mentor at 5 Elements Sustainable Development Group, Zurich, Switzerland. Thank you for joining us, Arun. Could we even have Brynel projected for a while? So I introduce both of them. Arun, is this a very early morning for you?
Let me unmute myself. Good morning, everybody. It is 7 o'clock here in Switzerland. It's not too early. I woke up at 3.
Okay. Would the volume be okay? So this is just a test. Is Arun sounding low to me? Is that the same for the others?
Yes, he's sounding low
to everyone.
Okay. Is this better now?
Yes.
Better.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. It is 7 o'clock. It is a rather cold morning, but I've been up a few hours. Greetings.
Thank you. I'm sure the reason is us, and we cannot thank you enough. Or is this an everyday thing?
It is an everyday thing. I start my day very early.
Okay, that's good. Brynel, opening comments, a hi, and a bit of a test to see that this works.
Yeah, so good morning to all of you, and I'm really glad to be here with all of you today. I mean, to be present for this, celebration of Women's Day. And I was quite inspired by the various speakers and what the Archbishop had to say. So I look forward to an engaging interaction with all of you.
Thank you. And we look forward to both of you as well, speaking as well, but just a little bit of introduction about each of them. Arun Amirtham is a solar entrepreneur who is passionate about the deployment of solar photovoltaic technology towards sustainable development, rural electrification, and the transition to a post-carbon society. And if I may read each one of your minds, as impressive as Arun may sound, a question that all of you may have is, what is a male solar entrepreneur currently in Switzerland doing on our panel discussion today? And here I answer you. Arun is a strong supporter of gender equality, and his passion for the cause springs from his parents. Arun's father fought for women's ordination in the Church of South India, and his mother very strongly and staunchly advocated women's rights and counseled young women as a professor in Madurai way back in the 70s. I don't think we heard about it then. She also counseled and organized legal and counseling support for women in marital distress in Trivandrum in the 90s. So that's about Arun. Coming to Brynel, Brynel's areas of expertise are public health, health rights, marginalization, and health activism at a global level. Besides this, she has rich experience in humanitarian work. Her experience includes psychological care in Sri Lanka during the tsunami that we all remember in 2004, post-riot work in Mumbai, Godhra, and Muzaffarnagar, to name a few. Brynel is the coordinator for Justice Coalition of the Religious in West India. Happy to inform all of you that Brynel was felicitated by the Women's Commission, Archdiocese of Mumbai on March 8, 2020, for her contribution to society. And we look forward to the discussion that is to come. We are ready to go. We are ready to move forward to it. But on this day, we let the men go first. So Arun, it's you. We start with you.
I wasn't expecting that, but I'm happy to do that. May I share my screen, please?
Sure. I think we have your presentation, so Elaine would be sharing it.
I have slight changes to that, so
Okay,
if I
okay.
could, and there is some transition as well.
I
but
will
I'm
make
not able to.
no. I will make you a co-host, Mr. Arun. Just
Thank
give me
you.
a sec, please.
Thank you. Well, while we are waiting, let me just say that I'm not very sure what my qualifications are to be on this panel with such distinguished persons as Brynel, the Archbishop, His Grace, who we just heard. But I'm a son. I was a husband. I'm a father, and I have a lot of women who have played a role model in my life. So I hope you will bear with me and the message I have to share with you. The topic for today is gender equality, break the bias, at home, at work, and in the church. Thinking about this topic and the International Women's Day, which falls on the 8th, 2 days away, I thought of three things to share with you. Number one, what is the historical perspective to this? Why are we where we are? What has happened over the past, historically, but also in the near past over the last few decades? Very briefly at the issue at home, work, and in the church. But then I think it's very important to ask ourselves, what do we do about it? How do we go forward, and what is the task at hand? So this is the content, but I start with greeting you all on this occasion of the International Women's Day 2022. Now, if we go back, let me see what's happening. Yeah. So now, if we go back to the story of the creation, God created humankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. He created them. So we see a strong case in the story in the book of Genesis that he created man and women in his image, in one image. So there is a very, very powerful basis for equality, equity between man and women. The roles may be different, but they are both equal in God's eyes. This is what we see there. If we look at the New Testament, again, St. Paul pleads to the oneness in Christ. There is neither Jew nor Greek, neither slave nor free. There is no male and female. Again, Paul points out to the oneness in Christ. I have not had the time to look at other faith traditions and how this comes across. But we have very, very strong calls for the oneness, for the equality between the male and the female creation. Despite that, if we look at the historical and sociological perspective, and there I need to recognize the support of two of my female colleagues, Nirupama and Bindya. They've been doing some of the research for me for today's presentation, and I'd like to thank them here in this juncture. Now, they point to some of the thoughts behind the predicament that we face even today. Sherry Ortner talks about the nature-culture debate. Women are akin to nature because of the biological role in leading to the procreation of the species, and the male is the one who is responsible for the culture or those actions which then enforce the human will over nature and subordinate nature and equally subordinate the woman. So that's one of the thoughts from Sherry Ortner to explain why things have happened the way they have happened. Engels looked at it in the context of property and the inheritance of property, and because of the reasons and the need to be able to explain the next generation and the heirs to the property, there was a control over the sexuality of the woman. In our own tradition, Manusmriti speaks of Prakriti, the role of procreation, versus Purush, the male who puts the force, the energy, the effort to creating the world around him. So these are some of the thoughts which have led to a skewed view behind gender, male, female. And of course, then there is a nexus of this bias, which is then institutionalized either in religion, in casteism, in many other institutions that we know in society. I won't go into the Indian context, but there again, we see the inequality, the male preference in things such as dowry, because of things such as dowry, where one is seen as an economic burden and the other is seen as an insurance in old age, and that leads to various other acts such as ferticide and infanticide. If we look at our newspapers, there is no end to what we see in terms of rape, in terms of child marriage, in terms of abuse, in terms of domestic violence. That's the tip of the iceberg. These are the symptoms. But where does this come from? What are the roots to this? Now, I'm interested in sustainable development. So while Reena pointed out to my background in solar energy, last year I launched a company which looks at sustainable development. Solar energy is one aspect, housing is another aspect, essential technology is another aspect, and there we are also active in working on this theme of gender equality. If we look at the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG number 5 is on gender equality. Yeah, so this is one of the 17 goals that the UN has recognized that India also is a signatory to. We've recognized that as an important thing. If we go back, if we look at the Millennium Development Goals, goal number 3 was to promote gender equality. So this has been a consistent theme when we talk sustainable development. And if we go back and look at some of the thoughts, some of the fundamental values or universal values behind sustainable development, yes, as we can imagine, human rights is one thing there. Leave no one behind is an important principle. It has to be inclusive. It's not just for a few, it is for everybody. But the third universal value there is gender equality and the empowerment of women. Yeah. So this is one of the underpinnings that experts worldwide, and I hasten to say I am not an expert. academically. I'm not a practitioner, but I'm very keen about this, and we are trying to see what we can do to change the mindset in this space. So gender equality and empowerment is very, very fundamental to sustainable development, to what we want to do and achieve as humanity. Where do we see progress? Why do we see progress? Education, improved health, legal reform, social movements, things such as creche facilities for women, structural reforms. There are. I heard as we were preparing for this event about the Beijing Declaration of the 1970s. I'd never heard of that before. I don't know where it impacts our lives and where anything is being done. I'm unaware, but there are these movements, there are these things taking place, and we have national programs, campaigns also towards this, towards the education, the protection, and the care of the female child. Nevertheless, despite that, if we look at a recent UNCTAD report, we have lost 4 decades. The number of years to close the gap between women and men was, I think, 99 years was the average worldwide, and now it has moved to 136. Yeah, for various reasons, whatever is being done is insufficient, unsatisfactory. We need to look at a few things. We still need to change the paradigm. We have some steps in the right direction, but not enough, and the focus is too narrow. So this is where we are. There's a long way to go for all of us. Now, very quickly, what's happening in the home? Now, the home is where the gender roles are set. What does the father do? What does the mother do? What does the grandfather do? What does the grandmother do? What is required of the male child? What is required of the female child? And this is where the biases, the prejudices are set. And this is where primary socialization happens. So the role of the home is extremely important. We need to learn to question our patriarchal beliefs. We need to respect the differences. Now, of course, there are differences, but the differences do not mean one is superior and the other is inferior. And these differences in our perceptions, our prejudices, are then leading to the violence we see at homes. And of course, that has been exacerbated through the pandemic because the husbands and wives were forced to stay within a constrained space. There was no safety valve. They could not go out. And the role of being natural caregivers, that itself is limiting the possibility of women, their scope in the dual role that they play at home and in the workplace. Very often they need the permission from the male. Why do they need the permission? In husband and wife informing each other, partners informing each other, great. Is it a question of information? Sharing what you want to do? Is it a question of permission? And then, of course, as a result, then failures in parenting are often blamed one way. Workplace, very quickly, there is the dual burden. There's discrimination in hiring, in promotion, in important projects, because the woman may be held up at home. She doesn't have the time. She cannot be focused at work. These are some of the issues. And yet we need to ask ourselves, how does Iceland fare? How do the Scandinavian countries fare? How do some of the countries which are able to manage this do this? And what are the lessons we are able to get from them? Again, patriarchal beliefs and being overrepresented in care work, they also then suffered a lot at the time of pandemic. Wage gap is about 20% or more. There are figures from 19% to 23%. There's a wage gap. And the disability, because she has primary childcare responsibility. Paternity leave, would that help? There are countries which offer equal paternity leave, as much paternity leave as maternity leave. So these are the things. While we look at the issues in the workplace, we should also be looking how are others managing it. Is there a better way of doing it? How do we avoid sexual harassment at work? And sometimes it's very casual sexism. It is in the jokes, it is in the attitudes. How do we change those attitudes and our attitude towards women? Church, I don't want to go into too much of what we have in the church. There are for sure differences between different churches. I come from the Church of South India tradition. The Catholic Church may be grappling with its own issues, and various churches have their own structures and ways of doing things. But I thought we should consider differences in Evangelia, the ministry of the word, and the diaconia, the work of the church. And very often we see a very good and perhaps even a very high representation in the work, in the service rendered by the church, but there is very little representation in the ministry of the word. And some churches have ordained ministry for women, others don't yet have ordained ministry for women. So we have various challenges in all churches, and this goes alongside other challenges we are facing in the church. What I just wanted to share here with you, and I do see this, I very quickly searched the web. I see that there are gender equality guidelines for the Church of South India. They were formulated in 2010, 12 years ago. What has happened, to what extent are we working on that? I don't know yet. But this is something from the LWF, the Lutheran World Federation in Geneva. So this is a communion of all the Lutheran churches worldwide, where they talk about how to promote, how to uphold, how to apply, how to ensure gender justice, and how to engage all aspects of theology, liturgy, and devotional life from the perspective of gender justice. So we have a lot of thought happening within the leadership of the various churches towards gender justice. How do we make this happen? How does that trickle down to the grassroots within the church so we can feel it? That's something we need to look at. Very quickly, call to action. That's important. What do we do about it then? Now, speaking to friends here in Switzerland a few years ago, there were two things that people said: education and awareness building in schools. So this is where it begins. It is not something you change overnight. This is a generational process. But unless we engage in that, the generational shift is not going to happen. It has to start with children. It has to start with the way boys and girls deal with each other in schools. Our challenges in India are how do we deal with the variation in human development indices, urban versus rural, from one state to another, there are differences, and there are differences in communities. So it is not without its challenges, but it needs to start with our children, with our youth. That's where the change begins. Number two, we need a prolonged and concerted propaganda at the national level. I look back at what we did and achieved in family planning in the 1970s and the 1980s. And yes, that has changed the mindset. That has changed our behavior as a population in certain things. And that's the scale of campaigning that we need here. We don't see it. The other thing I mentioned earlier, best practices. What are our own best practices within India? What are the best practices internationally, outside India? How can we incorporate those into the way we do things? Not easy. Gender transformative approach is something one of my colleagues told me about. How do we change the paradigm? How do we change the assumptions in dealing as boys and girls, men and women? Role modeling, I believe, is extremely important in this process. And finally, I would say, and this would be my call to the Catholic Women's Commission as well, how can we then join hands? How can we work together as partners? And yes, there need to be an equal number of male as there are females in this job. My last slide is just to recognize the women in my life, I have a picture of my grandmother Anna and my grandmother Mercy, and those were two wonderful women that I grew up with, and they were fearless women. And my mother, I also have a picture of my mother, but it goes on. It's my ex-wife, it's my daughter, it's my sister, it's my niece, it's my friends, my teachers, and these were the role models. And let us make sure that we recognize the women and the men who teach us on how we ought to be dealing with each other as men and women in God's community, and change the bias. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, Arun. And you did speak about sustainability, and it's a part that I missed during the introduction for fear of running too long. So yes, in July 2015, as Arun shared, he launched the Zero Poverty Rural Electrification Social Business to deploy scalable home systems, or SHS as we call it, to 10,000 homes across 100 villages. And it was heartening when I did read it. And now that you brought it up, I mentioned that part during this discussion. It's definitely worth mentioning. And thank you for sharing your insights as well. Education and awareness, starting with children and youth in the school, and they are the ones who go to be the future generation. So it all starts from there. While we do have Brunel set up, and then we take a comparison and questions in the end. A few things as Brunel sets up. We have Zoom maxed out to 100 participants, and those trying to enter, you may inform them that we would share the recording with them. As and when questions cross your mind, feel free to put them over in the chat box. A lot would have occurred when Arun spoke, and we would be happy to hear from you. We'll take it up at the end of the discussion, and if there's time, we'll even have you come on air and speak to us and have an engaging conversation. With this, over to you, Brunel.
Yeah. So good morning, I think, yeah, it's still morning by 2 minutes. It will be afternoon shortly. And I just also want to acknowledge the presence of three of my, friends and fellow activists. Brinda Adige is here, and Edwina Pereira is here, and Florence Jasmine is here. Edwina and I go back to the HIV pandemic, and Brinda and I have done some work together also. So it's good, and a new friend in Archbishop Machado, because in relation to the freedom of religion bill, which Karnataka and now Haryana and many other states are grappling with. Yeah. So I'll begin just a moment and put this on slideshow. Yeah, so, we are today to talk about gender equality and how do we break the bias. Okay, this is something that, all of us in different ways have been, confronting with, and in society, in families, in our communities, and also within church. So this is some, this presentation will basically be, my reflection and insights on the theme. Yeah, so while the larger theme is, breaking the bias, the UN theme is essentially about gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. So I just want to begin with this introduction that, the International Women's Day is celebrated worldwide, and it is celebrated basically to commemorate the cultural, political, and socio-economic achievements of women. So it's a day, which really makes us proud. But this celebration of women and their struggles and their achievements hopefully is not limited to March 8th only. it is supposed, it is something that we should remember and celebrate every day of our lives. And, we've also seen how heavily diluted and commercialized Women's Day has become. And that is something that, for many of us, we're now beginning to wonder whether we should also jump into this bandwagon, and celebrate Women's Day, because everybody is doing it almost ritualistically. And we really hope that this Women's Day, as we celebrate and remember struggles and achievements, some major, some incremental, we hope that this remembrance of Women's Day actually leads to radical social reforms in our societies, in church, in the world, and not just some general and vague notions of equality. Today, it is very easy to do a certain kind of tokenism, and we feel that we've achieved. So yes, you'll have women now. You'll have one woman in a committee. And that kind of tokenism, or two women in a committee, and it almost feels as if you've achieved, you've done this gender representation. So as I said, that the 2020 campaign theme is Break the Bias, and very, very relevant, today, given so much that is happening both globally and nationally. The UN theme I just want to focus on, because within this larger theme, the UN is largely looking at gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. That really, if we're looking at the world, and we're looking at we're looking at ecology, the environment, we are looking at political and social relations, we are looking at peace, then gender equality is very, very important for that. And the UN is focusing on gender equality, particularly in the context of climate change, environmental and disaster risk reduction, which are also some of the greatest global challenges of the 21st century. And Arun, is already doing his bit to take forward this agenda. So that's very praiseworthy. Now, within gender equality today, a sustainable future and an equal future remains beyond our reach. Now, I really hope that we all, absorb, assimilate, and internalize, all of this, so that it becomes part of our everyday life, lived experiences and our consciousness. And this doesn't remain as rhetoric, which is limited to just, one day or a commemoration of an event or something of that sort. And normally when we look at gender, we look at it rather simplistically. We look at it in terms of men and women. I would like us to look, I think I would not be doing a fair job by not pointing this out, that when we look at gender, we're not just looking at it in terms of binaries. We're looking at it in terms of females, males, transgenders, gender queer, gender non-binary, gender non-conforming, or agender. Okay, and when we're looking at gender, we're also taking into account the societal and cultural factors. So, there are biological realities. Okay, women give birth to children. Women, can breastfeed, and menstruation, but other than that, everything else is socially constructed. There's nothing that, men and women cannot do. And one needs to be aware how the social construction, the societal and cultural factors that play an integral role in gender-based exclusion and discrimination, both in the public sphere and in the private sphere. So we are really talking, our concerns should be about gender equality and gender justice. Both are important when we are talking about, gender or anything. And what do we mean as gender equality? So we are basically talking about the equality of the sexes. And it's a state of equal ease, so that both men, women, transgenders, gay and lesbian, queer women, are able to access the resources and opportunities regardless of one's gender and sexual orientation. And we're saying this also includes economic participation and decision making, and the state of valuing different behaviors, aspirations, and needs equally, regardless of gender. Okay, and so the women's movement is, of course, about women and men, and the power differentials and the search for equality. But it is beyond this, to understanding that gender is a very complex and layered term, and there are many people who don't necessarily only associate themselves as women and men, and we are really striving for the gender equality of all. The absence of discrimination, this is another definition. So when we're talking about gender equality, we're saying the absence of discrimination on the basis of a person's sex in opportunities. And because I am so-called male or I'm so-called female, I am denied certain opportunities. I am denied allocation of resources. What that video was trying to show, the kind of food women get or young girls get vis-a-vis boys, and benefits or access to services. And the last one is the more mainstream definition of women and men and girls and boys. You see the world in binaries, all enjoy the same rights, resources, opportunities, and protection. Okay. Now, basically, when we are talking about gender justice, we are saying that the inequalities between men and women that are produced and reproduced in the family. So you see these inequalities are produced and reproduced. Arun very rightly said, and he had a very detailed slide, that the family is the first bed of socialization. And we can see what kind of gender inequalities are produced and reproduced. The community, okay, the market. I mean, in terms, if you look at any of your advertising, you look at, I mean, they're constantly perpetuating, stereotypes about men and women. And of course, the state, and the state is playing, plays a major role in also perpetuating, while the state also has the responsibility to push through, gender, gender equality and citizenship rights. But you see, on one hand, you talk about the Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao, program. On the other hand, you see what's happening in Karnataka, where Muslim women who want to use the hijab are not being allowed to do so, and this is part of official state policy. Okay, so we are basically talking about, when we talk about gender justice, we are talking about the redistribution of power. How do we redistribute power, opportunities, and access for people of all genders? So male, female, transgender, queer, agender, all genders. And we also understand that discrimination, stigma, gender injustice, and gender inequality is very layered. There are intersectionalities, and these intersectionalities are defined by caste, class, religion, ethnicity, ability, sexuality. So as you see the intersections, get like a Dalit woman will face much more discrimination than an upper caste woman, and a Dalit man may also face discrimination in comparison to an upper caste woman. So we are looking at these intersectionalities are also very important. Now, just to so with this brief introduction, I would like to talk about gender equality starts at home. And I put this, 7 tips for raising feminist kids. So one is talk about it, talk about gender equality. It needs to be part of our everyday language, our everyday discussions. Not about, talking about things which are convenient and pushing other things about, under the carpet. Share the care work. Can we share the care work, or do we see certain roles as defined and as given for women and as given for men, and that women are naturally caregiving? This thing about women multitasking, I think women multitask not because they would like to multitask, but they have no other option. So also how do we look at some of these things which sort of say that women, define or characterize men and women differently? So I, for example, I also have a problem with this thing about feminist genius, which Pope John Paul. I mean, he has done wonderful work on communism. But why? I mean, God has not called anyone to be a genius. He is made as equally. So why privilege feminine genius? Okay, why privilege certain attributes of women? Both men and women can do so. If women are multitasking, it's because they do both. They're managing their caregiving roles, and they're managing other activities, employment, livelihood, and there is no sharing of responsibilities. Okay, embrace diverse role models. Can as Arun said, and we all know, I mean, can men have strong female role models? Can women have strong male role models? Can we have strong models of people who have triumphed, even if it's a trans person who have triumphed adversity. So we need to look at embrace diverse role models, empower our kids to speak out. To talk about what makes things difficult, what makes things easy, and they should be able to see and speak out what is happening within the home, what is happening within the community, what is happening within the nation, what is happening globally. So that's very important. And fight stereotypes. We all have stereotypes. And how do we fight and deconstruct these stereotypes? From where are they coming? It's very important. Stop the body shame, something which I was so glad that Archbishop Machado had referred to. We have these constructions of what is an ideal body type for a male, what is an ideal body type for a female. There is so much of body shaming that goes on, and all of this also needs to be deconstructed, challenged, and unearthed. And listen and learn from them. I mean, young people have a lot to offer us today. Take Greta Thunberg. Take what's her name? The one, the UN the one from Pakistan, Malala. Yeah, Malala Yousaf. Okay, take many. I mean, before at the anti-CAA movement in India, it was the young people and who had really spearheaded the movement. You have so many young people today in prison because of their position, their struggles. Umar Khalid, Natasha, and all of them who, because of their convictions, young people, are idealistic. They want to see a better world, and they're willing to risk, things. To make it happen. Now, the second level is the workplace gender equality, and I've just put this slide over here that says there's about 65%, and this is American data, experience wage inequality, about 37%, verbal harassment, and unfair promotion of blocking. This is, I just put this as a slide more than any, robust data, and we'll discuss some of this. So what are we talking about? Workplace gender inequality is achieved when people, men, women, trans persons, gay persons, lesbian women are able to access and enjoy equal rewards, resources and opportunities regardless of their gender and sexuality. So can the workplace be a place where women and men, gay and lesbian, trans persons can access and enjoy equal rewards, resources and opportunities regardless of their gender? And this requires that workplaces provide equal pay for work of equal or comparable value. We remove all barriers to the full and equal participation of women in the workplace. And I will discuss some of that in my next slide. Access to all occupations and industries. Like the Archbishop said, today women are pilots, women are playing a role in combat. Okay, so leadership roles, regardless of gender, and the elimination of discrimination on the basis of gender, particularly in relation to caregiving and caring responsibilities. Okay, and these are some of the gender biases that we encounter in the workplace. So one, as I said, unequal pay. Then how is also performance evaluation done? There are times when performance evaluations are done in manners which actually favor and privilege men. So you say, a person who hasn't taken leave at all. Now, then if you're going to do, is shown as being extremely dedicated to the company, but then that may not necessarily, for women, that's a real challenge. So you're putting women at a disadvantage because women often have to play caregiving roles. They are the ones who go for the PTA meetings. They are the ones who will take a holiday if somebody is ill. Okay. So what is our understanding and definition of meritocracy? How projects are assigned? Do you give soft projects to women? Do you give certain other projects to men? Projects that require a lot of which may be extremely projects that bring you a lot of visibility and opportunity, but may also require travel, may also require long working hours. You then give those opportunities only to men vis-a-vis women. At the interview level itself, many times women are asked, do you plan to get married? Do you have children? What will happen? I mean, these kinds of questions never get asked to men. Diminished responsibilities, again, very linked to, okay, because she's a woman, then you will, it's a kind of benign paternalism. But we don't want paternalism. We want equality and we want affirmative practice. Okay. Then do we have adequate restrooms, creches, daycare centers? Then what is our gender affirmative policies within the organization? Like, for example, for women who have to work late at night, it's not that women can't work late at night, but can we look at safety issues? Can the company offer, travel, safe travel? And this is how you will increase participation in the workforce. It very sadly to say that in India, women's participation in the workforce, labor force participation is declining. And it's not because women don't want to work. And it's not that because women are not getting educated and not, you are seeing more and more women getting educated. Of course, the number of women who reach higher education, who reach advanced, a university is much lesser than men. But still the labor force participation is declining, and it's a cause for worry. So what about paternity leave? Do we make paternity leave as a matter of policy so that, both men and women can maybe a woman can come back after 2 months and the husband can continue for another time looking after the child. Then conversation, sexist language, I won't go into detail because Arun has already made a reference to that. Leadership development, what opportunities for leadership development, positional bias, certain things are seen in a very cliched way as belonging to women as against men. Glass ceiling that is there, norms, sexual harassment are all things that one needs to really work. And coming to the third point is gender equality in the church. Now, as you can see, the highest echelons of the Catholic Church is basically all male and all ordained male. This is the group that really makes the decision, making, does decision making within the church. And the institutional church, like all institutions, is a product of a patriarchal society and also a church which is also patriarchal and hierarchical. And we see that, decision making is controlled by ordained men. The priest is seen as in persona Christi, in the person of Christ, and that gives the priest or the male. I mean, so you see here both, gender and, kind of theology intersecting to give a certain level of privilege. And very often this privilege leads to has led to and continues to lead to very deeply entrenched clericalism. Okay, but yet you see that the church is largely feminized. You see women who are there. If you go to any mass or you'll also physically see more women, but these are women who are playing ancillary roles, largely caregiving roles. The decisions making is done by the ordained men and also other laymen. And you see even our commissions, like I could never understand why a women's commission has to be headed or have an advisor who is a male. Why can't the women's commission, if at all needs an advisor, and needs to be headed, why can't it be by another woman? And Pope Francis, of course, is making changes in that direction, with certain appointments. Now, and often, gender inequality in the church is also justified, through scripture, like everything else, gets justified. So you see, as I say over here, majority of members are women and the leaders are men in church. And God's will, various verses of scripture is quoted to justify characteristics of women and men. So, women should be like this, and you will quote scripture. And I never understand why we can't take progressive elements from scripture and quote that to make a point. Why do we take certain things which are, context specific, that were issues and the people who were inspired were also products of their society and were talking from that lens. Okay. And gender roles are seen to be set by God, and that fulfilling these assigned roles is also proof that one is good Christian. So a woman's role is a homemaker. A men's role is to to go out and take care, and we we tend to see things from that sense. Okay, and as this Sister Teresa Focardis says, the church is an institution in which patriarchy is rampant. All the decision making is linked to something called ordination, and ordination is linked to something called gender. Okay. Now, also, how women in the Bible are portrayed, very often they're seen as secondary role players in God's plan for humanity. They're more as a background. So in some cases, their names are not even mentioned. Sometimes they're seen as embodying negative characteristics which are detrimental to men. For example, Delilah, Eve, consistently blamed for the fall of the great man for God. And I just want to say, these ideas are so deeply rooted sometimes within us that even in this recent case of, the Franco-Mullakkal case, where, people have constantly been saying, but, she may have enticed him. Why did she keep silent for so long? And we know that women, when they're experiencing domestic violence, when they're experiencing sexual violence, they don't normally come out immediately and talk about these experiences. Okay, and as outside the character of God. So we also refer to God as male, and because we refer to God as male, we privilege God, the male dimension in our lives. Okay, and the emphasis of Christ's maleness over his humanity. Now, and these are some of the texts that have the potential also to create conditions conducive to violence. I was giving a talk on gender-based violence in the church, and I, the slide is from there. It was for priests, okay, where, Ephesians 5, 22 to 24 can be used to define the space of women in home and society, and also be used, counseling victims of domestic violence to remain with their partners. Okay, text or verses that glorify suffering. So Christ's submission to suffering continues to be used to encourage women to see suffering as God's will. God doesn't will us to suffer, senselessly and without purpose. Yes, there is this concept of redemptive suffering, but all of this needs to be seen, and redemptive suffering can also be life-giving. So is this really life-giving? Because, it's really about, how we look and see suffering. The misuse of Christian ethics. I think one of the greatest contributions of Christianity is this entire concept of forgiveness and reconciliation. but do we use this, understanding of, forgiveness and reconciliation to make women adjust, compromise, and to avoid addressing issues of gender justice? And glorification of clergy or family or priesthood or family ideology, where these institutions take priority over the lives and rights of people. Okay, so it's very important to, when we are engaging with scripture, is to also look at the difficult and problematic texts. We need to I have a multidisciplinary approach, uncover contributing factors in the construction of text. Most of the text, while of course have divine revelation, they were also written by people who belong to a particular period, time, and ideologies. Okay, so these texts are not written in a vacuum, but influenced by the context in which the writers lived, the social and political conditions under which texts were written and interpreted, and therefore a gender analysis becomes very important. And the Marian devotion is such an important and powerful devotion in the Catholic Church. And I always say it has such an important and liberative potential. However, we often see, if you look at our programs on Mary, she's always portrayed as obedient and submissive, as a passive receptive, and embodying a kind of motherhood that imposes a strict limit on female aspirations outside the home. She's seen as a domesticated woman, but for me, I can tell you this very proudly and confident, that for me, Mary is my feminist model. Okay, and she is a feminist to me because she was a woman of faith who actively and freely responds to God's invitation. Okay, she was a self-defining woman. In the Magnificat, she announces the end of the patriarchal order, and she is a liberated woman who embodies the good news in the proclamation of the Magnificat. And this is what I draw inspiration from. So can we have a more liberative Mariology? That will become very, very important. And as in the opening remarks, and Arun has also alluded to, there is a scriptural basis, because for us as Christians, and for all people of faith and believers, irrespective of which faith tradition you belong to, where religion is an important, is an important influence in our lives, we do draw a lot of sustenance and inspiration from religion and scripture. So we have, a scriptural basis for gender equality. God created man in his own image, and man, as per their understanding at that point in time, it's basically means men, women, and people of all genders in the image of God, and he created him male and female. He created them, and this essentially means that God will not do anything, with limitations. God doesn't do anything in partiality. God doesn't keep limits to what he does. So if he has created everyone, female, male, trans person, gay, lesbian, Hindu, Muslim, Sikh, he has created all in his image, in her image. Then we are all equal, and we are all filled with the same capacity, resources, and grace. Okay, and what Jesus says in John 10, but I came to give life, and life in all its fullness. I think this is what Elaine referred to in the beginning. So she says that God, this is the promise that Jesus makes to us. And therefore this life and fullness is for everyone. And therefore anything that goes against this fullness of life is something that is not coming from God. Okay. And as St. Paul says, of course, St. Paul has also said, he was a product of his time and has said things which probably today would be seen as anti-women. But why can't we look at, inspiration such as this? There is neither Jew nor Gentile, neither slave nor free, neither male nor female, for all of you are one in Jesus. And I really like the opening hymn, so I immediately wrote down that line: for everyone born a place at the table. This is what, because everyone comes with the dignity from being created in the image and likeness of God. There's no superior, there's no inferior, there's no insider, there's no outsider. There's no male or female. We are all one in Jesus. Okay. And we really need to work for gender equality in the church. We need to build a community of equals, building a non-hierarchical church. We need to work together to root out clericalism. And for this, we require the support and you know, I mean, of the clergy, of people like, you know, Archbishop Machado, of priests and religious who are, you know, and lay people who will work together to create a church of equal. You know, decision-making powers need to be shared with the people of God and women. We need to address gender and its intersectionalities in church. Is our church, you know, how do we address caste within church? How do we address ethnicity within church? How do we address class within church and sexuality within church and in decision-making? Is our language gender inclusive? Can we look, I know there's this entire thing about women's ordination, and I think we are still a long way to go, but can we look at women as deacons? Okay, gender policy of the Catholic Church is a good initiative, but I often feel that the Catholic Church doesn't look adequately within. Whenever we are thinking about gender rights, gender justice, women's issues, it's always as if the problems are in the outside world and not within the church. We have our own problems within the church, and we really need to take a good look at that. The catechesis also we need to re-examine the content and teaching from a gender lens. We should remove things that are sexist, misogynist, and homophobic. Zero tolerance towards abuse, okay? Sexual abuse and discrimination, zero tolerance. The Holy Father has come up with this very, very important document, exhortation called Vox Mundi. And actually by 2022, we should have implemented it, but we know that we have not really done much in that direction. And the country and the world is looking at us, dear friends and dear Archbishop. You know, if you're not going to address the sexual abuse crisis in the church, you know, people are going to say, how do you talk about women's rights outside the church? How do you talk about gender justice outside the church? And if we don't address this, you know, demon that we have, and it's not that other faiths do not have, it's prevalent everyone, but we have a gospel imperative to address this issue. If we do not do so, the right wing, the fascist forces are going to, you know, they're going to co-opt this issue. The CBCI sexual harassment and the immediate implementation of statutory requirements, okay? And this is a pledge that I have put over here. We pledge this International Day, and if you can say it at your own level, we create a gender equal family, church and world. A family, church and world free of bias, stereotypes and discrimination. Within a family, church and world that is diverse, equitable and inclusive. A family, church and world where difference is valued and celebrated. Together, we will forge women's equality and the equality of all genders. Collectively, we will all break the bias. And individually, we are all responsible for our own thoughts and actions, all day, every day. We will break the bias in our families, communities, and churches. We will break the bias in our workplaces. We will break the bias in our schools, colleges, universities, and institutions. We will break the bias in our nations and the world. Together, we will all break the bias on International Women's Day and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Brunel. You moved beyond binaries and, you know, speaking about the church, you would have tugged a lot of strings in our heart when you said Mary will always be our model, and that resonates with all of us. We directly move into question and answers given the time. We could spotlight both the speakers at this point of time. And Daryl, could you please come on? You've asked a couple of questions. Can you please come on? You know, you may unmute yourself and concise it in short in one question. Daryl? Okay, so moving on, we have a question from Amelie. Would you want to ask it yourself?
Regarding economical sustainability, once we break that bias, so how do we bring in economical sustainability and gender sustainability together? Because there are a lot of people in the rural areas who are not educated and employed. So finance plays a major role. So how do we bridge the gap? Thank you.
Arun, would you want to take it?
Yes, it is a tough question. It's am I audible? Yeah. It is a tough question. We spoke about the nexus. We spoke about the intersectionalities, and they all come to play in this. I believe you can only progress step by step. It's not going to be revolutionary. You need to start by making sure that there is equal opportunity. Are women allowed into those jobs where men have now a privileged access? So it starts with access, and then you need to look at the issue of equality in pay. It's easier to talk about equality in pay in jobs which have a better structure, corporate structure, or a legal framework. You are able to work through those frameworks. But what do you do in the rural landscape, where the prejudices are there against the women, against how many bricks she can carry or how much work she can do? Is she able to provide the same amount of output as her male colleague? So I do believe it starts by tackling those prejudices and working on those, and from there it moves. We will not have a change overnight, and then look at cases where it has worked and how has that been implemented. And a lot has to do with the employers. A lot has to do with the decision makers. So the action needs to be at a political level, at a legislative level, but in the minds of the people who control those economies.
Thank you for answering this. But is there any skill development programs or employment opportunities coming up in near future? This is just for my knowledge. Thank you.
Is that back to me, or Brynel, do you want to answer?
You can go. What is the question? I missed the question.
Are there any opportunities, skill opportunities?
Skill building, capacity strengthening.
Yeah, there are programs for I mean various government programs, and which run also as part of the National Skill Development Corporation. There are a lot of programs. I don't know, and I don't think that they're doing it from a very strong gender lens. But yes, there are many opportunities. But skilling also, I mean, what is very important, and I just want to tie it up with what the previous question is: how do we create the opportunities for education, for workforce participation? That becomes very important, and so because women can then, and young girls can then move, get education, and not just up till standard 10, standard 12, graduation and beyond, and get into proper jobs. Sometimes skilling is important, but skilling also can be very reductionist. It can give you a temporary livelihood, but beyond that, there are no opportunities for growth and development. It depends on what kind of skilling also one is talking to. So I would say, yes, skilling is important, because in the sense, if people do not have opportunities and are in the informal sector, then with skilling can get into this, a semi-formal work environment, and then hopefully, move this thing. But so definitely it has values, and I think we have the Catholic Church can play and is already playing and can play a bigger role in skilling. But let's also see how do we make opportunities for education, where women can go back to schools and back to colleges and back to universities, so that they're then able to have, they develop a more sophisticated competencies and skills and qualifications, and then contribute more meaningfully to society. And I just want to say another thing. Let's also bring this issue of gender, parity in terms of pay. I mean, we know that in our own institutions, we do not pay men and women equally. Okay, women, sisters who are teaching in our institutions are often not given the same salaries as others are given. So I want to bring this debate back to us. We tend to, as Christians, always look outside. We always see the problem outside. Okay, but we also, while we look outside, it's fine. But as a feminist, we say the personal is political. Let's begin at home. Or as we say that cliche, charity begins at home, or equality begins at home. Many sisters who are in our institutions, many women in our institutions are not paid equal wages, say as the priest or as a male. So we need to really take stock of these matters also.
Thank you, Brunel. We have a final question from Daryl. One question and a short answer. And to all the others who have asked, we have it recorded in the chat box and we could revert to you post this session. Daryl, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's going to be a long question, but I'll condense it as much as I can.
We are out of time. Thanks.
So we know that the Scandinavian Nordic countries are doing so much to improve women in the workplace, but is there anything that the developing countries are doing that maybe something the workplace over here can replicate? Specifically from the developing countries, since that is where we are.
Daryl, I think we need to look at it at a wider context. We heard earlier that yes, there is skill development, there is this, there is that. I was reminded of a visit to a village in Andhra Pradesh a few years ago, where the young girls were pleading with me, make sure we have a high school or a training institute here in the village. We are not allowed to travel to the town, and we are married off early, and we are not able to progress. So when we come to differences in wages, when we come to differences in many things, the root cause lies somewhere else in the complete development pattern. And when we compare the Scandinavian countries or any other country, even Switzerland, in one canton voting started in the 70s, and that's a joke. But this happens as well. But let us look at the differences in the Human Development Index. We start at a different point, and we are at a different point than in the West. When I look at South America, Argentina shares the same level of gender parity as Europe, whereas other countries don't. Why? Yeah, Argentina is better than the rest. So there is a historical perspective. We need to understand this. It's not going to change overnight. We need to act at the root causes rather than look at what happens a generation later. It's not an easy job. It requires the kind of analysis that Brunel has gone about. We need a political will. These things are not, of course, Catholic Church is strong in some parts of India. Catholic Church or the CSI is not strong in other parts of the church. Certain things require the force of the complete political institution to make those changes over decades. And how can we change that? It starts with the mindset of the leaders, and the leaders come up from the community, right? So this is the predicament we are in. How do we break it?
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Thanks to everyone. We have overshot on time, and with this we come to the end of our panel discussion. We thank our panelists Arun and Brunel for diverse views, and I don't have to say much. If you open the chat box, it's just overwhelming with responses right now. So we move ahead and continue to the rest of the program. Back to you, Anita. And if your questions need to be answered, go ahead and contact one of the organizers. They would be answered in detail by the panelists and given back to you, and we could even arrange for a conversation. Thank you, each one of you, for joining in. Back to the hosts. Thank you, Brunel. Arun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reena. And that was truly an enlightening discussion, and I'm sure you're all eager to leave this program armed with knowledge and the ability to make a change. And my sincere apologies. We were hoping to have our ex-secretary Lona Lobo share her thoughts, but unfortunately she's having some connectivity issues. I'm sure her prayers and thoughts are with us. We now move on to the entertainment part of the program. The Social Work Students Association, SWASA, at St. Joseph's College is doing some wonderful work in creating awareness about a number of social problems. They are with us today, and I invite Anna Teresa Anthony to introduce her team of talented youngsters. Welcome, Anna. Over to you.
A strong woman knows she has strength enough for the journey, but a woman of strength knows it is in the journey where she will become strong. I, Anna Teresa Anthony, am deeply privileged to represent the Social Work Students Association of St. Joseph's College, Bangalore. We are happy and proud to have received this opportunity to collaborate with the Catholic Women's Commission for this event. Before we move on, I wish to introduce our association to all of you gathered here. The Social Work Students Association, SWASA, aims to sensitize the social work students to respond to social problems and motivate them to become agents of change. Our activities range from creating awareness through rallies and street plays within college and for the general public. We also conduct seminars, discussions, and public lectures with eminent professionals from various fields of social work. Through the Social Work Students Association, the students participate in public protest. The association celebrates national and international days of importance through different programs, and we also have events in collaboration with NGOs within the city. SWASA also offers a platform for students to express themselves through cultural fest, debates, group discussions, and personal sharing. On this occasion of International Women's Day, we aim for a gender-equal world, a world free of bias, stereotypes, and discrimination, a world that is diverse, equitable, and inclusive, a world where difference is valued and celebrated. Together, we can forge women's equality. We now present a virtual skit themed Gender Inequality in Our Lives, which portrays the injustice happening in our homes and workplaces. Now, I invite Ms. Elaine D'Souza to screen the skit.
Okay, Vandana, is this seat taken? Okay, good. Man, what an amazing quarter we had. Oh my god, everyone hit their targets. It was amazing. Except for that Mohit.
Mohit, don't get me started on him. He's so annoying.
Yeah, to believe that. Even the way he works also is like totally unprofessional.
Very, he doesn't understand anything I say. I keep telling him to do something, he's like, no, he just doesn't bother.
Yeah, I still don't know how he's holding on here. But literally everyone else was just amazing, man. I mean, we made a pretty good impression in the HR.
Not to brag, but I helped with the whole Bali contract project.
Oh my god, seriously?
Yes.
Dude, that is like some 50 crore project.
I know, right?
You did that?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that is unbelievable. Wow, that takes some massive time. Wow, everyone else is just awesome. And the bonuses we all got, did you check that out? The bonus we all received for the quarter we had, did you get the bonus?
No, I did not. What bonus are you talking about? Where did you get this?
Like, I mean, everyone got it. What are you talking?
No. I didn't. I just got my salary. I didn't get a bonus.
Are you serious?
I like this so much. Where is my bonus?
Yes. Come on.
I want to talk to you about something. I want to know that we had a great financial year and many of them received traditional bonus with their salaries. This month, some of them there is money. Was there a mistake or before?
Well, you see, Vandana, we did have an amazing financial year, right? But I don't think it was a good start. It's more or less to do with the
Well, like I said, it mostly had to do with the cutbacks that we had to pay off our resources. How deeply unprofessional is this? Usually 85% of women don't get their salaries or bonuses because of men like you. I don't think I can work in a place that doesn't appreciate my work or doesn't give credit for the work that I do. I can't do this anymore. I can't. I don't want to either. I'm sorry.
I have music practice at tomorrow 6 p.m. Can I go?
No, I don't want you to go out. Oh my god, what kind of dress you're wearing? It's too short.
It's not like it's that short, and one of my friends will anyways come to drop me home.
Which friend? No, you're not going out with them.
I'll be going for my friend's place. I'll be late. Okay.
Okay, bye Adi, take care.
What? Why? How did you allow him to go out when it's already 7 p.m.? You're not allowing me to go out. This is not fair.
But he's a boy. He knows how to take care about himself, Arya. But it's not safe for you to go out.
Just don't make a whole scene of it. Just listen what mom is saying.
What's happening? Why are you shouting, Arya? Just lower your voice.
I want to go out tomorrow. I have music practice at 6 p.m.
I told you way before that you have to get into the house post 5 p.m. Do you have any confusion in that? And please, help your mom with her household work. It's a high time for you to learn how to cook and take care of the household. It will help for your future.
But Daddy, household work is just not for women. It's also for men. Men have a role to play.
Don't speak to your father like that. We are giving you more than enough freedom. Don't repeat this.
This is not fair. I'm not allowed to go out of this house, and he comes whenever he wants and goes out whenever he wants. We always talk about gender equality, and this is what we see in our home. This is just so messed up and meaningless.
Gender inequality exists everywhere, even at our own homes. But we will continue to work towards creating a gender-just society, and we'll begin with our own family and friends, making them understand that we all need to coexist irrespective of our gender and live in harmony and peace.
All in all, humanity needs all genders. Thus, inequality will get us nowhere. Let us put back the age-old social structure and mentality, and through education and awareness, teach everyone gender equality and work together to achieve equal respect and opportunities for all genders alike. I now invite Professor Lata Paul, Assistant Professor, School of Social Work, St. Joseph's College, to take over the session.
Thank you, Anna. Women who had the strength to really stand up for something that they knew needed to be done is the best example of no matter how small you might feel, how low you may feel on the ladder or the totem pole, no matter what color you are, no matter what gender you are, you have a voice, and you certainly have the right to speak up for what is right. We will now play a little game to identify various Indian women personalities who have stood their ground and made a difference in this world. The picture of the personality would be projected on the screen. I would say a sentence on the personality, after which you can guess, and please put your answers in the chat box. This personality's motto in life is nothing is impossible. No target unachievable. One just has to try Harder and Harder. She was the winner of the Magsaysay Award in 1994. Can we guess who this is? Yes, we've already got answers. It is Kiran Bedi. Congratulations. She inspires us as a symbol of our Nari Shakti. This personality was a Hindu warrior who fought the forces of Hyder Ali single-handedly with a pestle in the kingdom of Chitradurga of Karnataka, India. Yes, I think we have an answer already. It's Onake Obawa. This personality is a famous Indian author, actress, and political activist, and known for her involvement in environmental and human rights causes. Take a guess, please. Yes, we've got the answer already. It's Arundhati Roy. This personality has filed a criminal suit in the Supreme Court of India in which she won the right to alimony from her husband. Can we guess who this personality is? We are waiting for answers. Okay, so since we don't have an answer yet, it's Shah Bano Begum. Even if I died in the service of the nation, I would be proud of it. Every drop of my blood will contribute to the growth of this nation and make it strong and dynamic. Yes, we already have an answer. It is Indira Gandhi. Champions are not born, they are made. This personality is an ordinary girl who fearlessly pursued her dreams without bothering about the bars and proved the world that nothing is bigger than the desire to win. Yes, we've got an answer already. It's Mary Kom. This personality was the unsung feminist of India, an Indian medical practitioner, social reformer, and Padma Bhushan Award recipient, a true feminist who led the battle against India's caste-based misogyny. Can we please guess the personality? Yes, you got this. It's Dr. Muthulakshmi Reddy. This personality oozes an aura of middle-class simplicity and conviction to stand for a good cause. I'm sure we can all take a guess. Yes, we got an answer. It's Medha Patkar. This person continues to be a role model for every woman aspiring to enter the historically male-dominated judiciary. She has broken the proverbial glass ceiling by becoming the first woman judge of the Supreme Court. Can we take a guess? Okay, we've not yet got the right answer. It's Fatima Bibi. Yes, actually, we got an answer. She is known as the first female teacher of India. She was an Indian social reformer, educationalist, and poet from Maharashtra. I'm sure we can all guess this personality. Yes, Savitribai Phule. Compassion, empathy, and care are three words which best describe her. Who is this personality? Yes, I'm sure we all would know this, Mother Teresa. She had a great passion for airplanes and space since her childhood. Through her story, you can learn that nothing is impossible and you can achieve all your dreams through real dedication to your work. Yes, we've got the answer. It's Kalpana Chawla. Thank you everyone for guessing the personalities. And now we would, while our team would guess the, read out the winners, we would just have a little note to say while they are working on seeing who the first and second winners are. Just give me a moment. Every year, International Women's Day is celebrated on March 8th across the world. It's a day when everyone shows appreciation, love, and respect towards women. A woman is said to be a beautiful creation of God. It is a fact that all the great personalities are born from the woman's womb and have taken their initial teachings from a woman. And that is why people give due respect to women in their lives. It is a day when women are recognized and celebrated for playing various roles in different spheres of life. Women have a robust spirit, which makes them excel in their fields. They contribute massively to the lives of their family members and the country. And today it's a great way for the Women's Commission Bangalore Archdiocese to commemorate this celebration in a special way. Let me just see if we've got the winners. Just give me a moment. Yes, the first place goes to Maria Leelavati Joseph and Maria Leelavati Joseph. And I think there is, for the second place, there are a lot of people. So I think we would announce the first place goes to Maria Leelavati Joseph. And I hope we enjoyed doing this together. And now I hand over the session to the MC. Thank you for giving us this opportunity to be part of this wonderful Women's Day celebration. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Lata Paul. Wasn't that fun? Thank you, Team Swasa, for that very entertaining and informative session. Now I invite Reverend Dr. Father Susairaj, Parish Priest of Our Lady of Victories Church, Dean of the KG of Deanery, Advisor of the Women's Council, and Spiritual Director of the Women's Commission, will now address us briefly. Welcome, Father Susairaj.
Thank you very much for everyone. First and foremost, I want to appreciate and thank and congratulate on the International Women's Day. I really appreciate the wonderful work that is being done by the Archdiocesan Women's Commission. So in this way, I would like to give a few suggestions for the gender equality. I was really thrilled to learn about Brynel and Mr. Arun for their thought-provoking ideas about gender equality. In the church, we find at the top level, especially Pope, papal teachings, bishops at the diocesan level, then theologians, they all speak about gender equality. We all appreciate, we are really very grateful that they have got so much of concern for the gender equality. But at the grassroots level, especially in the parishes, Mr. Arun was speaking about this one, what is happening in the Catholic Church is not very much aware, but in the grassroots level, we find that women are not so much given so much of importance. So it is really very agony, and also annoying one. Gender equality is spoken at the top level, but at the parish, but at the grassroots level, this is not being experienced by all the women. So few suggestions that I would like to give. First and foremost, make sure 50% of male and 50% of female in the parish pastoral council, parish finance council, choir, readers, and altar service be assured. Then secondly, women's voices in the mission of the church should not be silenced, disrespected by anyone, and especially by the clergy. The third one is attitudinal change on the part of the clergy is very, very essential for the promotion of gender equality. Then I would also suggest that this women's group, which is focusing too much at the church level, must also have a platform for inter-religious dialogue. And finally, my suggestion would be women's role in caring the common home that is our earth. So these are the few suggestions that I want to give to the women who are in this place. And at last, I would like to thank our Archbishop. After taking over the Archdiocese, the Women's Commission is really very, very active and they are doing wonderful work. Thank you very much, our Archbishop. And also, I want to appreciate Mrs. Priya Francis and all the members of Women's Commission who are doing remarkable service both to the church as well as to the society. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Father Susiraj. You continue to guide and support us with your words. We come to the end of our program. So I call upon my friend, Vidya Sikwera, another active member of the Women's Commission. She belongs to St. Francis Xavier Church, to give the vote of thanks for us. Welcome, Vidya.
Thank you, Anita. As I begin thanking all the people involved in this International Women's Day event, I would like to quote Psalm 136:1. Let the peace of Christ rule in our hearts, since as members of one body, we were called to be thankful. On behalf of Women's Commission, I would like to take this golden opportunity to firstly thank our beloved Archbishop, Reverend Dr. Peter Machado, who has taken time out from his schedule to grace this occasion and strengthen and guide us. I also thank Priya Francis, our Women's Commission Secretary, who's always been there to inspire and motivate us women of the Archdiocese. Regrettably, Lorna Lobo was not able to participate, but we still thank her for a strong support. We are ever grateful to Elaine Basis, our women's team lead, for helping us work as a cohesive team, achieving today's success. We sincerely thank our panelists, Renee D'Souza from Mumbai and Arun Amrita from Switzerland, for the valuable time and invaluable inputs that's been an Thanks to both of them for such an interesting and enlightening session. We also thank Rina Pereira for being the wonderful moderator and the sponsor team under the able guidance of Professor Lata Paul and Viola Narona, Assistant Professor.
Wishes. Bearers who work tirelessly to find new ways to help women in our parishes benefit from government schemes being offered and draw our attention to projects that need our attention. Inspire each of our members to give their time, talents, and best efforts to help the women in their parishes find employment, training, and help when it's needed, and also educate them on gender equality. We ask the Blessed Virgin, our Mother Mary, to bless each of us today. May we emulate and shower our families and all whom we meet with true Christian charity, selflessly, not asking for any recognition or thanks. We ask your protection, O Lord, from the COVID pandemic, which we pray has retreated and allows us to now venture out in the real world. We also pray for world peace. We ask all this in your precious name, dear Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Vindabio, for that beautiful prayer. Thank you, dear participants, for so patiently sharing this International Women's Day celebration with us. I hope you benefited from it. I'm sure you all must be hungry and ready for lunch, so we won't keep you all much longer. We look forward to seeing you at the next event organized by the Women's Commission. Stay blessed. Do your bit to bridge the gender inequality gap. Take care. See you all. Bye. And may God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Should we all put on our cameras and, put the gallery view so we have a record of all those who attended this event? Okay.
We can do that, Reena.
Yeah, so we can remove spotlight and switch our gallery view on. And it will be on memory. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Any feedback, or we can then leave?
Amazing program, each and every one of you who organized this, and of course our speakers. I'm so proud of each one here. Congratulations, and really in solidarity to break the bias in small ways, beginning at home and in our church too.
From the national office, I thank and congratulate Priya Francis for this lovely program. Somebody said it is better the men celebrated. I'm just back from my parish where the men celebrated the day. The roses you can see behind, it was given by the men. They celebrated it very grandly. And it was first time the men celebrating. It was a real victory. And there was a lot to learn from what happened today, how the men could appreciate the women, what they were doing. And another thing I would like to say, one of the parish last Sunday in Bangalore diocese, the priest told me the men were asked to do all the household work and the women were asked to come for the program and the competitions. So things will change and let us wait for that and we will do it. It is in our hand.
Sister, you're on mute.
You're on mute, sister.
We cannot
Host
hear you.
Muted me, not me. Host muted me.
Oh, sorry
Okay.
about it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. So it is gender justice, what we speak, no? It is, I think, within me. I make it change, not somebody else. I can defeat someone because I am able to do that. So let's take that challenge. Let's not cry for gender justice. We will say that we are going to do it. It's within us. We have closed it. As I evaluate, I have closed it within me, that gender justice. I do not tell any man he's not doing gender justice. I will make him that he gives me the justice. So this should be our thinking and our feeling. Let's go ahead with that. Yes, thank you so much. Yeah.
Powerful words. Powerful words. Anybody else would like to come in on closing comments?
Yeah, I would like to thank Elaine Menezes, Elaine D'Souza, and Anita, and all the events team, Andrea, a few names I'm calling out, Jean, and everyone in the events team. They were totally empowered to take the decisions, and the planning, organizing, strategizing, the event management, even selection of the speakers was all curated by this wonderful team. So I'm so thankful to God for such experienced people in our events team. And I'm looking forward to so many more events to inspire our community. So God bless you all.
Elaine, Andrea, you've all been behind the scenes. Could we say thank you to you in person?
Good one. Good one, Reena.
You're Chilean, Rina.
Yeah.
So this is Elaine, whom we see here. We all, the girl in pink, we owed, I mean, she's put the entire PPT together, and I do not know, and if Andrea would agree if I tell her come on camera, but yeah, she quietly works behind the scenes. We'd love to see you too. Andrea,
come on.
Yes. These are our heroes whom we see on screen. I'm taking a print screen right here.
Stalwarts, a big thank you. Also to our panelists, encouraging, enlightening, inspiring, Brunel and Arun. Thank you so much. And our Swasa team, our young students who are going way out to bring messages to the public at large in various ways. God bless every one of us today, and let us celebrate our International Women's Day in a big way on the 8th.
And Arun and Brunel, God bless you for the wonderful work that you are doing. And thank you so much for enlightening us in today's session.
Yes.
Very, very inspiring.
Daryl has done some amazing work, and Juliet, if I'm not mistaken, I was speed reading messages. Is he your child?
Yeah.
Please do connect up with Arun. Your questions were detailed, and it needs a far larger debate.
I will definitely do that, but I'd like to thank everyone behind the scenes, in front of the scenes. A great job. I'm so glad I participated in this. It's a great way to spend the Sunday, and I'm sure this will just replicate throughout the year on Women's Day, and going ahead in the year. Thank you so much to everyone. I hope you'll have a great Women's Day and great Women's Year and Women's Life.
Thank you, Daryl.
I must say, Daryl, your mom is having a great influence on you. God bless her.
I'm 100% sure of that. If I am what I am, it's all thanks to my upbringing, thanks to her. So there's no doubt.
Wonderful.
Yeah, we've seen her very dynamically running the commission. So yeah, we know what you mean.
That's good to hear.
So anything else, or we leave?
No, we can close.
Thank you, everyone. We'll call it a wrap and end for the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rina.
Thank you.
See that face in the mirror, a picture of what could be. One who holds the power to make dreams a reality. Inner strength and beauty, wisdom and grace. Know you've got all that it takes. You've got what it takes to live your dreams in this lifetime. This is the moment to shine. It's all about the ones you love, all about the things you do. It's all about the journey, yeah. It's all about you. It's all about your wishes. It's all about your time. It's all about the things you've become in your life. You know the stuff you're made of.